Thank you, Mr. Jay Kumar. I think that was extremely revealing, insightful for people like us, and you were able to inject some lightness into the conversation also. Fantastic. I never knew you could inject so much humor into this. Thank you. I think it was a fantastic presentation from you. Just to give you some perspective, I think we are reaching a record in terms of number of questions that have come to us. I think we have crossed 30 plus questions, maybe almost closer to 35. And from us, as far as Vellore, Madurai, Trichy, Bangalore, apart of people.
10 is on?
780 people are watching it online. So, 780 people are watching it online. So, we can declare this a hit already. So, fantastic. Thanks, Mr. Jay Kumar. We'll go on to the questions. I'm going to take the privilege of being the chair today to ask you a question before I get on to these questions from the audience. As crimes become more and more complicated, technology driven, and different kinds of assignments, whether it is insurgency, terrorism, technology, etc. You chaired the police academy. In terms of training the police, is there a specialization early in the years or people get trained later? And how does this work? Because the number of crimes, variety of crimes is also increasing. So how does this work normally, sir? Yeah.
I will put it very briefly. The most brilliant people in the entire world, if you compare with the other police forces, many of them enter as constables in most of the countries. Very few have this sub-inspector level, havildar, or they call it sergeant major, that level. But if you talk about the intellectual quotient, the IQ level and the knowledge level, etc., Indian police is one of the best. But the issue of the Indian police image, in spite of such superior material at the top, is a systemic one which I mentioned. Now, talking about the NPA training, like in any training, we look at ASK. You ask yourself, okay, the attitude, which is the most important thing. Next is skill, next is knowledge. Actually, it is placed in the alphabetical order already. I used to always mention that if your skill level is not so good, if your subordinates are better skilled and you have the right attitude, they will put up all the skills on the table. Your knowledge may be next to nothing, but you have wisdom to understand that knowledge is elsewhere. Like I told you, the partners elsewhere, that Sri Ram as a partner for us. That's enough. So in my humble view, I think attitude is the most important thing. But in that 10 months training in the NPA, 12 months training in NPA, to say that you're trying to mash it up and reshape and blend and bond that attitude is too much of a tall order. It doesn't happen that fast. Because I myself found some of these so-called brilliant people in skills and knowledge, they were par excellence, top people. But in the field, some of them did not go the way I thought they should. And on the other hand, people who are considered not so good, very mediocre, ordinary, slogging, simple, they are not top of the ladder, that kind of chaps. They did brilliantly in the field because of this humble approach to life, saying that I can't do everything myself. If you have to be a good leader, I have to look at the team. So it was the team leaders who succeeded. I could consider all my luck and all my good work was as a team leader, not because of individual brilliance. So talking about training can do a lot, but still it can only do that much.
Let me start with a very topical question. In this day of social media, how do you train and sensitize police on accountability and behavior and ethics is the question.
It's everything happens so fast. I would not like to quote the recent happenings because it is subjudice. It will get into a different track. Some very good officers, just because they lacked the communication skill or they ignored to come to the media immediately about what the police are doing, to be transparent. They deliberately had nothing to hide. They had nothing to hide. They were very good. Because they did not connect well, the wrong message went to the public, and that thing got entrenched, and the prejudice and the bias and the belief that police did not do. It happened very recently somewhere. Everything was okay, the officer was good, but the point was the tone in which he mentioned, the time delay, all these things matter. So social media is a very dangerous thing. A tsunami of opinion can suddenly make the social media the biggest weapon. You find the ministers and the plenipotentiaries and big chaps scrambling and running to meet a rape victim or some other victim. We have all sympathies for such victims. We should all have. It's a matter of shame that that thing happens. But to say that the hereafter murder will not happen, rape should not happen and all, too extreme. It's not practical. It's not correct to imagine. Ideally, yes, there is no utopia, I told you. There is no crimeless utopia. But we should all march towards it. Social media is forcing the big people to do knee-jerk reaction, suddenly going and giving 10 lakhs compensation, 15 lakh compensation. Are they able to do it for all other victims? But the point is, same social media is going to make the victimology as an important subject, victim central to the whole judicial system, the policing system. The empathy for the victim is going to increase in the days to come. That is part of the future scenario. So social media has got its plus and minus. It brings the stabbing and screaming next door as if it's happening right here. The fear factor spreads. But fear factor also encourages safety factor. New Jersey, the police had more and more CCTVs because of this fear factor. And 50% crime came down. Here, A.K. Viswanathan increased as commissioner the number of CCTVs. Every 50 meters, you had one CCTV in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai. 1.5 times more than London. We are ahead of London in this. So these are all intelligent means of reacting to the public pressures. So social media has got its plus and minus. I would say we should rather absorb the plus and move forward.
Thank you. I think that question was from Mr. Prakash in Chennai. Professor Bala from Bangalore has an interesting question on inclusivity. What steps can be taken to encourage more women to join the police force? And how can police departments create a more inclusive and supportive environment for women officers?
True. See, when I joined the police in my batch, 75 people were there. I'm 1975 batch. There was only Jija P. Madhavan from Kerala in my batch. In fact, to be honest, we 74 people, most of us, did not take very positively to the presence of a lady there. She was in my squad, in squad number 1. And I had a very funny way of running, long legs and one step forward, one step back. And little later I realized that the way I'm running is causing her more problems. And then my instructor was very sympathetic to her. Because you can't expect the lady to do everything like a man, but she is more emotional quotient in many other things. She's far ahead of you. So we don't grant that concession where she is ahead, but we like to muscularly, where she is behind, you like to sort of this thing. So this prejudice or bias is always there. But the plus point is, which I didn't mention in my speech, was that the importance of the muscle, the diminution or the reduction of the importance of the muscle has happened in a big way thanks to missions. So more and more women are going to be engaged because policing is not going to be purely man-oriented or muscular. Tamil Nadu police is one of the highest in terms of ratio of the women. So this is increasing. But many of the other states are following, and that 33% is one thing. In fact, it will one day become even 50% or even more. So policing is not the monopoly of the man anymore. The machines have made it easier for her. The emotional composition or the makeup of a lady or a woman is specially oriented to tackling many of the problems with empathy. For example, in negotiations, hostage negotiation, etc., it has been found that women psychologists, they understand the child psychology better. They understand the women's psychology better. They understand the elderly psychology better. So they have got the specialities. But we should not stereotype them and only make them receptionists or typists or etc. This is already happening. So this will happen more. This is how I look at it.
Another interesting thing, very relevant to our times, Mr. Kumar, in an era of increased public demonstrations And what strategies do you recommend for managing protests in a way that respects civil liberties while maintaining public order? This is from Arjun in Pondicherry.
I won't use those black nylon threads or whatever I told you. But if they are protesting and they are in a allotted area where they are not prejudicing a woman about to deliver a baby or somebody in serious condition, an ambulance coming and all these things, if these public are not inconvenienced, if they are doing the protest in a manner they are supposed to do, I think the police doesn't really get involved. You just regulate. But the moment they cross the red line, then the escalation of the counter-violence starts, whether you should tear gas or lathi, or you should push them, or how do you sort of scatter them, rubber bullets or foam. The whole panorama of things are there. Whole sequence is there. So the violence which the state has authorized you to use in condensed doses, calibrated doses, is something which is the discretion of the man on the spot. So I would say you are at liberty to use your liberty without prejudicing the liberty and freedom of others. The moment that gets compromised, the policeman intervenes because he is basically an interventionist. He cannot do good for everybody. If I have to protect about 10 people, I may be not so good to the 3 people who are a nuisance to you. So this compromise is always there. It all depends on the situation, and that is where the SHO initiative and thing counts.
This question is on more a proactive, positive note. How important is community engagement for effective policing in today's world? And what initiatives could improve relationship between police forces and local communities? I think people like you would have tried it in the past in many areas. So what could be your recommendations?
The community policing should be done very sincerely because, and then police should try to share as much information with the community. For example, in UK, there is called crime mapping. The moment a robbery happens in an area, it is put on the map. Yesterday there was a robbery, 10 days back there was a robbery, and so tomorrow there could be a robbery, this man becomes more careful. Then he says these streets are mapped and said not so protected. So you take your own protective measures. Police doesn't stand guarantee because they don't have the wherewithal to cover everywhere. They can't be omnipresent and omniscient, but they share the knowledge. Here we don't share the knowledge because the community engagement is sometimes dangerous. We don't know whether the fellow belongs to ruling party or opposition party, what is the interest are, what is his personal. So if the neutral public and neutral police ally, they are very good. I told you the crime is weaponized, so there is a problem. So here what is called working crime. Working crime means we are putting the crime under the table, we don't disclose. So a bit of transparency and openness in engaging the community is there, but it should not become a fad, a fashion, just to say engage. I meet about 10 society people, 10 community thing, have a big audience, I put it in Hindu and Indian Express and it comes as publicity. So I never did any publicity during my time with the association, but we had a very effective Soundra Pandian as DC Ashok Nagar and Jalat Tripathi, and then in Anna Nagar, we had very, very intimate, deep connections without too much publicity. That worked very well. What we did was simply made sure all these guards and protected the Gurkhas and engaged all the people were linked up in our way. This I found when I traveled in the 90s to Tokyo, I went to Moscow, I find all the museums, all the railway stations, all the malls, all the security guards were indirectly linked to the police. There was an automatic connection, a synergy. So it is a very, very important thing to engage the community. Without the community, all these rainbows and triangles are of no use. Because customer is the king. And if you're the king, and we should treat you not simply imperially or royally and with a crown on your head, but with respect. So engagement is absolutely important. Sorry? No, who's it?
Friends of Police.
Friends of Police concept is a very good thing. So you'll find some black sheep within the Friends of Police also, like black sheep within the police, within any organization. So if there's one army man who's misbehaving thing, we can't trust the Indian army, which is one of the best in the world, or perhaps the best also. So one man, that is the problem with all this thing, what is called this color of the uniform. It sullies. One man's aberration becomes the common this thing. Stereotyping becomes very easy. So FOP, Friends of Police, is a very good concept, but they should be kept under close supervision and check. It's a fantastic concept.
Another question which gets debated a lot, Mr. Jayakumar. What measures can be put in place to foster a culture of ethical behavior within the police force? And how can officers be encouraged to uphold integrity despite external pressures?
I'll give you a very brutal answer. There's a fellow, I think his name was Wilson. He was one of the first graduate officers in the United States police forces. He was posted in California, I think, as commissioner or whatever head. He sacked 25 to 30% of the corrupt. I mean, not the corrupt. That number who are considered corrupt, he sacked them. Who's the other fellow who has done it in the corporate world? Jack Welch. Straight from the guts, and one more book he has written which I've read. He says he sacked about 20 to 30%, and General Electric, I think, turned the corner. But whether you can consistently sack so many, whether your police officers have the powers to sack, is a moot point. Once upon a time, the commandant in CRP and BSF, commandant, who is the leader of 1,000 men, he could promote a constable, head constable, sub-inspector, and the section 55 of the CRP Act or something, if I remember correctly, gave the power even up to SI to inspect. I mean, he could recommend that level. Then all powers were taken away. This vacuum cleaning or in the reverse of delegation, sucking up the powers and pushing it somewhere else, makes this fellow demotivated. And I think there is a dilution of authority at every level as considering what it was past. The authority my father enjoyed as sub-inspector, as an inspector, which I have seen personally, I don't think the superintendent of police enjoy now. So where is the power gone? This migration of power goes into certain authority who use it to the discretion, and therefore this fellow becomes not so powerful. I'm not talking about everybody. I am talking about as a matter of general thing. That's what happened. The power flows elsewhere. So your question was ethical behavior. Let us say that SP is the king and he is able to sack anybody who is unethical. And if SP is unethical, the DG is able to sack him. And no political, no other interference. I am not attributing that everything is due to political interference, because I have served with MGR, I have served with Jayalalitha ji, I have served with Mr. Karunanidhi, and I had no problem. They might have had initially some problem, but they all reconciled, they understood. There was a very clear this thing. Similarly, I have been working with the various governments, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi in a different capacity as a protector, and I have later on worked when the Congress regime changed in 2014. I was very willing to come out, but the next government said stick on. It never made me political. I still remain very neutral, apolitical, and I have got my very personal views which you won't express openly. But to a government, my loyalty is limited to my mission, my task. So talking about ethical, it becomes a pretense, it often becomes a pretense for the unethical to behave in a particular way. And to say that, so the short point is, the power should remain where it was originally meant to be. But that is, I think we have crossed that. Many people have enjoyed taking away your powers and they have started enjoying it. To transfer it back is a tall order. But I wish it happens. This is where I said, if the future police or the future security services have to be very vibrant and virile and very effective and efficient, they should be autonomous and independent, but under the supervision of certain arrangement, which is possible, which is existing in many other countries.
Thank you. That's fascinating to hear that. Moving on to a slightly larger issue, from your experience, what are some key lessons for successfully handling counter-insurgency operations, and how can they be applied to contemporary challenges, especially like in Mr. Veerappan's case?
One is insurgency, one is sheer criminality.
Correct.
Though many people worship him, hero worship him, many people have their own views, and I keep trashed and trolled in YouTubes and all. Even now people tell me, but I just ignore it. No point. My job was to end a chapter. That chapter was ended, finished. So I don't look back and then I don't try to analyze and who is talking what. There's a lot of guys that have got a lot of time, so let them keep talking. The important thing is, he was considered invisible, he was considered uncatchable, so my team did it, our team did it, Tamil Nadu police did it, that's it, matter over. But he tried to look like an insurgent. He suddenly latched on to Tamil cause, Tamil Nadu Retrieval Force, Tamil Nadu, the Tamil National Army, TNA, all this, and a little bit of Sri Lankan sympathy. Maybe he had some empathy and sympathy. That's a different point. I also have a lot of sympathy for the cause. That's separate. But when it becomes violent, when it transcends a red line, then I step back and said, okay, your cause is good. Same thing applies to insurgent. I have a lot of sympathy for a normal tribal poor chap. He gets banged by both sides. He desperately hugged the Maoist because Maoist promised El Dorado for them. He promised the golden land for them. Why? Because the government could not reach there, the remote places. It was between the state's borders, the junctions of borders were beyond the pale or administrative control of the actual government. The government did not have the vision or the depth or the feet, the boots on the ground so deep. That vacuum was filled by that chap, Maoist. And not all Maoists are bad. Many of them are genuine. They are better than many of our other guys who are in normal society. But the problem is, once he raises a gun, it's like a child entering this room with a grenade. What do? Do I empathize with the child and say, okay, you throw the grenade, you are a baby and we are all 50 of us will die? I am putting a moral dilemma question to each one of you to think carefully, because this is not my code. This was mentioned in the counterinsurgency manual of the US, that if anyone is found with this kind of thing, you treat him like an adult. Because if you try to apply your emotions and sympathy to that man, you are going to lose your soldier, and you, as a sergeant major, your job is not to pamper a kid who is coming with a gun, but to look after your soldier. Your protection, you're on protection duty. So that is the point about insurgents. Their cause may be genuine, the man may be good, the tribal has a reason to be angry with the government, but whom do you blame? Does it allow him to carry a gun and fight and kill your man? So that's the red line. There I become anti-Maoist. In the ideology and sympathy, etc., that is, I keep it to an intellectual level. I keep it inside my heart. I don't want to unnecessarily harass him and beat him and this thing. But if he comes with a gun, he'll tell my man to shoot, or if I'm there, I'll have to shoot. That's the job.
Again, a question on proactive measures to avoid criminalization of society. What role can police play in youth engagement and early intervention programs to prevent crime before it occurs, especially in areas like drug addiction, etc.? Is there a role for the police at all?
Oh, bro, definitely. There is see, wherever the air and water can go, the police can go. Wherever the media, only media can go, all these cases. Wherever media goes, the criminal also goes, police can also go. So police in counseling, they got a good role. It's called part of the verbal skills. And apart from the interventionist, abrasive, that action skills of physically handling them. In many countries, including India, many programs have been undertaken. Maybe society is not fully aware of even supplying legitimate, syringes, so that they don't use the used ones, contaminated ones, and then they get infected with HIV and so a lot of silent programs are there. In de-addiction program, J&K police, I was actively involved with that. They have a de-addiction center, drug center, and that's very popular. The police center, very popular. So police definitely have a role in counseling, but police itself cannot stop the drug menace. Drug menace is very insidious, very dangerous. It is very silent and it can grip. And things from China become so dangerously cheap and available. And what is sold for 1 rupee in Bombay get multiplied so many times. So the economic reasons are behind this. Profiteering. So there is a racket. It's a very dangerous thing and many societies are doing it. So police definitely have a role, but police don't have the only, they cannot be the only agent for it. They should be the supportive agent for it.
I don't think we can cover all the questions. Apologies for the questions, but I've tried to club the questions in a way. We got answers to many of our questions. A couple of last questions, Mr. Vijay Kumar, sir, okay. As head of the National Police Academy, what reforms in curriculum could you implement to enhance the quality of training? This is from Farida in Chennai.
When I was nominated for NPA, this 2611 Bombay was just happened. I was reaching, already to happen, I was in DG training in Ashok Police Training College here and looking after that near this Vandalur Zoo, the main academy. So I started looking at 2611 very deeply. I started analyzing what had happened. That is where the dog and the camera thing came, and I tried to bring in the dog and camera into our Bangalore drug training center. What is that place, Shekhar? Drug training center in that area, Trishalu or something. Anyway, so I sent a team, Praveen Sinha and one team went to Bombay. Then I spoke to several officers in Bombay. Then I decided that IPS officers are brilliant. I told you they're intellectually very smart, the best in the country and all that. But in tactics, they should know a little more. The young officers should know a little more. So we called a chap called Karate Datta, General Datta from the Indian Army. He was a very, very well-known officer, very daring chap, who has done a lot of action in his time. And both surreptitious or secret operations and open operations. He was the special group. I called Datta, my old friend from 1985. I told him, come down. He didn't even ask what for. He just landed up next day. Dr. Subramaniam, one of my mentors, is still there in Coimbatore now. He was the leader of the SPG, first former director. We sat down and formulated a scheme. We opened a tactics wing for the first time in the NPA. With the first week itself we started. By the time I left, I read about 45 courses. I means not royal, me, the whole team. So tactics wing got entrenched and we taught them the urban tactics specially and not only that, I said, why IPS officers? Because in NPA, only the officers going to become IPS can enter. It was not training the other officers. I opened it for the DSPs of the armed police, DSPs of entire India. I said, why? Why this casteism? Why only IPS in academy? Academy is meant to educate, not only IPS, nursery. But why not give them benefit? So this was one thing. Then we simplified the training for the trainers. It will be too long, but this is all about shooting. Would you be interested to know? Can I mention to you? Alright, supposing you got about, all of you are going to shoot. This is the target. There will be only 6 targets here. So only for even first row. So second row, third row, fourth row, you have to wait hanging around. So much space, but so many people. So keep changing the schedule. Okay, you all come next week. That is also not working out. So I devised a simple program. It's called ABCD. I was very fond of this alphabet. I will only give you an example. How much time? Another 5 minutes you got?
Please go ahead.
Okay. A, actual shooter, you, Vijay Kumar and team, all of you actual shooter, you and all. B, buddy, all of you buddy. So you be standing here, you are the safety officer, this man. C, confire. Confire means fake fire. You are not firing. You will be facing that wall. Your bullet is removed from your gun and you go on aiming. Call it dry practice. Okay. And then E for emergency drills. D for dismantling. F for freeze. I'll get back to you. D for dismantling weapon. What you call tactical shooting. When a weapon is being shot, if it stops, you can't call the mechanic, call the armorer, by the time the enemy would have shot you and you are gone. You are writing your epitaph that. So you have to uncork, you have to do everything yourself. No repairing time there on the spot. So this dismantling weapon into basically 6 different parts. 51 parts are there in 9mm fabric national if a romba. But you can't open into 51 parts. You basically 6 parts and little more also you can do. Very quickly dismantle and put together. Another team is doing that. Emergency drills. One small vehicle will be kept there. So minivan, 10 people can get in. So if I tell 10 people get in, you will take about 3 minutes, 4 minutes in the beginning. If I train you 10 times, 15 times, 100 times, you will get in within 10 seconds, 10 of you will get into the vehicle without hitting you. This is called 1 minute drill. I published a book called 1 minute drill. On the basis of ideas I had throughout my training. I visited 51 countries during SPG days. So wherever I went, I asked them, what is new? What is special? Even from Africa, so-called some of the countries were supposedly backward. I learned fantastic things from some of these guys. So okay, coming back to emergency drills means getting into a vehicle, getting out of a vehicle, hundreds of emergency drills are there. Then they freeze. One thing about policemen or any shooter, army man is impatience to shoot. They want to shoot and finish off the bullet. No, hold your fire, wait for the enemy, freeze. So what is freeze? You lie down and simply lie like that for 30 seconds in the beginning, no movement. If mosquitoes are biting you, let it bite you. If something is happening, let it happen. You will not move. 30 seconds endurance become 1 minute, 2 minutes. This is called part of the ABCDF. Like this I have done a lot. I may write a book also, you may like to sort of...
You can read the book like MMA.
So I will be assured of a minimum... minimum support price or what I call it. Okay. Right.
Last question.
Yep.
Since it's about policing in the 21st century, I'm sure it started long back. With technology and data playing increasingly significant role in decision making, how can police forces leverage technology, data analytics and intelligence to enhance crime prevention?
I think I mentioned to you in passing about example of artificial reality goggles. When I'm going to a scene of crime, I get a complete crime mapping picture of what all happened, on the history of the place, etc. And once I go to the scene of crime, so it is a violent crime and blood is there. So the sensor is able to take the blood and DNA samples are immediately transmitted to the lab and results are coming very quickly, online. And the old method of sitting and writing 100 pages of a thing becomes cumbersome. The policeman is bogged down to a pair of hands. Now he is a superior being with a sensor. He is able to dictate. And the whole dictation of his observation is done simultaneously by his mouth, oral, plus the sensor is taking pictures of whole area, what's happening. So this is getting transmitted. So he goes from, he is agile and mobile. He goes from scene 1 to scene 2 without waste of time, thanks to these sensors. I already mentioned to you the role of drones. I already mentioned to you many other things. So like that, all this equipment, body-worn cameras. So body-worn cameras gives you the real story of what is happening in a scene. Now when I am going into anti-terrorist action, my eyes and vision are limited to 110 degrees. So I got 180 degrees here. This is the effective range. If I have a camera-mounted helmet, which is already there, it's not as if we are talking about the myth. It's a reality. But this reality is going to become proliferation of the sensors. That is what I am talking. More and more sensors. Every constable will be equipped. Now, not every constable is equipped. It's so costly. Science and technology will demystify and make it cheaper and inexpensive and make it available there. So when I enter a place, I don't require 10 faces to keep telling me what's happening. These sensors are more intelligent and more penetrative. They got compound eyes, electronic eyes to see what is happening. Olfactory, auditory, visual, everything can be combined in that sensor. So when this sensor is picking up things, I know that enemy is trying to do something from upstairs. And I don't even move and turn that side. My eyes are still here, but I'm getting this virtual reality coming. And I have to only dab a button here, and that enemy is tackled by a gun which is mounted from here. The bullet goes straight to him. I'm not talking about a mythical story. It's all going to happen. It's somewhat happening. Like when I'm wearing this blue dress, I'm walking into a jungle. It automatically assumes a camouflage color. And if the jungle is more brownish, it takes that brownish color. Odorless, smellless, sweatless garments are already there. Civilians are also buying it. When you go for games, most of them wear it. Now intelligent garment which is not visible, which will make you look, if you're standing there in the corner, it will almost make you invisible. That kind of things happening. So all these small add-ons, what the science and technology are giving you are so important that tomorrow when a sub-inspector says, somebody says, you take this 10 men with you, he will say, no, I don't want 10 men, give me 2 men, but give me all those 8 sensors in addition. So the mission is going to substantially take away the low-skilled jobs. I think Goldman Sachs predicts by the year 2030, 30 crore jobs in the world will disappear. So which of us will lose the job depends on how skilled we are. That is where I said the future man has to be smarter and more skilled. He cannot be just a pair of